God of hope, give us eyes to see and ears to hear the good news of your resurrecting love. Amen. Please be seated. It was not a significant road, and it did not lead to a significant place. And the two people traveling it were kind of equally insignificant. The road itself was a narrow, jagged country road, not an impressive paved stone one like the Romans used to build and guarded. The place was a small village called Emmaus, which was about 7 miles outside of Jerusalem. And now Emmaus's only claim to fame was that its name translates to a spring of warm water, useful for healing. And the two disciples, they are not named at all until midway through the story. And even then, only one is identified, Cleopas. Now, there is much speculation as to who Cleopas is, but it is quite possible he is related to Jesus in some way. Maybe his brother was Joseph, making him Jesus' uncle. And his traveling companion could have been Mary, his wife, who was present at the foot of the cross, because we're really not told the gender of the other person. One thing is for sure, though, it appears they are not really important people. They are not among the 11 apostles, and they don't seem special in any apparent way. And yet, they are somehow in the loop and are aware of the events that took place in Jerusalem, and they are privy to what the women told them when they went to see Jesus' tomb to prepare his body. And that was enough to astound anybody, really. An empty grave and a vision of angels declaring Jesus was alive. Now, some of the male disciples didn't believe the women, and they ran to the tomb themselves and saw it was empty, but did not see Jesus. And so I imagine they trudged back to their hiding place somewhat dejected. So imagine the scene. Cleopas, and let's say it is Mary, are heading home to Emmaus after the Passover, grieving and confused about the events that they had witnessed and the events they were told happened secondhand. I mean, they don't know what or who to believe. And so it's quite possible in their confusion and grief, they are lashing out at one another as they are walking and discussing the passion and death of Jesus. Now, I say this lashing out because the word Luke uses for discussing actually translates as tossing words. Tossing words. So this leads us to conclude they were arguing with each other. So I can hear them now, use a little imagination. Says Cleopas, "Now, Mary, don't be ridiculous. The brothers went and did not see him, and what is this nonsense about angels?" Responds Mary, "You're the one being ridiculous. My women friends saw what they saw, and I believe them. Why don't you?" Says Cleopas, "It's just preposterous to think Jesus would appear to women and not his male disciples." Responds Mary, "Why wouldn't he appear to us? We were his disciples too. Who do you think cooked the meals, mended the clothing, and washed their dirty feet?" And so it could have gone on and on like this for miles and hours. They were like two lost sheep, running away, abandoning their pack of Jesus' disciples, heading back home to what felt safe and familiar, and taking out their sadness on one another by being combative. And this is totally understandable for people who have given up hope. just like the apostles and all of Jesus' followers. They all thought he was the Messiah who would redeem Israel, and he turned out to be anything but. And so this is the state of the two people Jesus meets on the road. And it is no wonder he says to them, "Oh, how foolish you are, and slow of heart to believe." But Jesus doesn't say this to chastise them. If he did, he would have just said that and left. But rather, he says it in the process of finding them. Just as the good shepherd goes after the lost sheep, just as the widow searches for her lost coin, just as a father rejoices when his prodigal lost son has been found. Jesus finds Cleopas and Mary on an insignificant road leading to an insignificant place and revealing anew that it is always God's mercy to seek the lost. And thankfully, they allow him to find them. So much so, they invite him to come stay with them. And by doing so, unaware at the time, he is healing them and renewing their hope. And how does he do this? By conducting a Bible study, sitting at table with them, sharing a meal in a regular place, and engaging in a daily activity. And then the big revelation happens. When he breaks the bread, they now have eyes to see and ears to hear. Before this, they could not see him because they no longer had hope or faith in him. But with faith renewed, they were able to recognize the truth of who he is. So much so, we are told that their hearts literally burned within them. Well, how does the story of the road to Emmaus speak to us? Well, I believe it captures the stories of our own faith journeys. Along life's path, we experience many times of grief, confusion, anger, times when we cannot see or hear God in any shape or form. And like Cleopas, Mary, the apostles, we can lose hope too and tend to want to run away and escape into what feels safe and familiar. It is during these times I am convinced we need Jesus the most. We need him to find us wherever we are lost. Whether it be in places of grief that surround us like a grave, whether it be in places of fear like the locked upper room, whether it be in the places we encounter in our daily lives, like a stroll along a country road. And he does find us. Jesus does find us. The fact that a group of insignificant women received a revelation that Jesus was alive and with them, the fact that Cleopas and Mary, two seemingly unimportant people, were met by Jesus and share an ordinary meal with him, proclaims to us a powerful spiritual truth, the universality of the resurrection message. The message of Jesus' resurrecting love, see, is for all people, for you and me, not just for the rich, the well-known, the famous, the powerful, the privileged, and those of high social status. The message that our God will always seek to find us, each and every one of us. That God will always seek to restore our hope when we feel hopeless. That God will always seek to raise us up from the deepest, darkest corners of life, even the corners of sin and death. And you may say, well, that's great, Joan. How do we know this? What's our evidence here? What is our chief reminder that God will always seek to find us and heal us and restore our faith? What's the evidence? Can anybody tell me? Well, the evidence is here. It's here. You're here seeing, witnessing this evidence every time we gather for the Eucharist. For when we think about it, we follow the same pattern of the encounter on the road to Emmaus. Jesus opens up the scriptures on the road to Emmaus, just as he opens them up for us in the liturgy of the Word. And then he breaks bread for us, his disciples, in the liturgy of the Eucharist. Opens up for us new life. So the pattern of the liturgy of the Word and the breaking of bread is our evidence. In our very worship, we are comforted and empowered time and again with the hope that Jesus, who is truly present in the breaking of the bread, is truly present with us to the end of the age, to the end of our age. And so today, friends, I pray each of us, no matter what road we are on in life, we will invite Jesus into the home of our lives. That we will open our eyes to see and our ears to hear the truth that Jesus does meet us and is present wherever we are. Now, the challenge is, for most of us, is seeing him and experiencing his presence in the places that don't seem significant, in the people who don't seem important, in our ordinary daily activities and routines. That is the challenge for us. Christine Walters-Paintner, in her book, The Soul's Slow Ripening, Celtic Practices for Seeking the Sacred, writes, when we rush from one thing to another, we skim over the surface of life, losing the sacred attentiveness that brings forth revelations in the most ordinary of moments. When we rush from one thing to another, we skim over the surface of life, losing the sacred attentiveness that brings forth revelations in the most ordinary of moments. So, friends, let us therefore not run or rush down life's road, for if we do, we may miss the risen Christ, standing there to meet us, stretching out his hand to light or rekindle a fire of faith that burns in our hearts. Let us not run or rush down life's roads. Let us rather meet our risen Lord.